Good morning, HubSpot Nation, LinkedIn friends, YouTube friends. We're all over the place now, Rob. Welcome to Let's Build GTM. We're changing gears. Uh, Used to be talking about community content all the time as a strategy, and now we're trying to help people connect the dots a little bit better to GTM itself. So we said, hey, that's what we're trying to describe here. That's what we're trying to build. Um, so let's build GTM on Fridays at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central with Rob Jones. Happy Friday, Rob.
Happy Friday, man. I would say we're building it every day. We're just not always live building it every day. And some days we might be rebuilding it. Some days we may be doing like a fresh coat of paint or whatever. Maybe it's just updating it. I think that metaphor is running out on me as we start the talk.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And that's what we hope to share. Like we are like every company needs to be building their GTM every day, not necessarily from the ground up every day, but thinking about their strategy and how it's working and the nuance of, moving from like, okay, we're going to do this quarter and then this quarter and then this quarter. Now, like, this is why we like talking about community content so much. It's like, what are we doing in the moments each day to bring value and go to market,
And be
right?
current because there's a lot of stuff out there that is changing all the time. I would say the perspective shouldn't, but the amount of tech proliferation and tools and people that claim to know everything and people that that increases and it's confusing. A lot of this is meant to bring clarity and like a source of, I don't know, at least familiarity to people, and also enable them to contribute to that in a
Yeah,
profound way.
for sure. Yeah, that's my favorite word right now. And probably will be for a while.
Yeah, man, shout out. Let me just go ahead and shout out, and I know you'll get into it, but we just kind of, before we came on, we're talking about it, and I know you almost exploded last Friday, with not being able to speak or tell me. So if you want to get some of that out, like, here you go.
Yes, we launched profoundly yesterday, and uh, it was awesome. We did it exclusively LinkedIn. We're going to get into it a little bit today, because it's very much powered by the work I've been doing over the past year, and not just creating content. That's what people see on the surface when they see all the shows and they say things like, "Oh, I see you everywhere." Right? The relationships that are built, and that's we talk about it every week, man, right? The relationships and the networking and just the value going back and forth. That's what drove like yesterday's launch. And hopefully, I can share some examples of like how, like, that being said, there is so much nuance to like, not that it's like an overly complex orchestration, but that without doing the work up front, like there's no like just make an ad and then push it out and then you'll cover some gaps in your strategy. Like, no, there's none of that. If you do not have the human relationships in place, there's no shortcut, right? Um, so thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. Profoundly's aim is to make HubSpot help profoundly simple. Uh, Connecting users to the people that can help them, right? Like we've been hearing it for a long time that HubSpot's getting harder, it's getting more complex, it's getting more valuable as it does, but it can be very hard to realize the value. Um, and when there's so much complexity in kind of the ecosystem that needs to support that, we're seeing a lot of gaps in like being able to find the person that you need, trust that they're going to be able to help you out of the gate. Like, are you able to see what they've done before for your industry, for your use case? Our goal is to make that a lot easier, not only for the HubSpot customers, but, for all the people doing amazing things already on LinkedIn and Sprocketeer in on the HubSpot community. They've been doing it for a long time. Like, They do a lot of great work, but we also see everything's being built in silos, right? So, like, how do we harness that energy and make it easier for everybody involved to just have like a massive impact? Um, so that's what's going on. It was fun yesterday. It was fun to see it come to life, finally, and I appreciate you giving me the space to do that. And what you said before we went on, like you saw profoundly all over the place yesterday. That's the plan. That was the strategy. And, you know, the form field that was required, that I had to explain why it's required, the how did you hear about us field, uh, it was 100% LinkedIn's. In a lot of places, it was this person on LinkedIn shared your post, reshared this post. Uh, it was, it worked like it was supposed to work, man.
Why did you have to explain the "How did you hear about us" field? And to
It's,
whom?
well, it's just like, the, um, there's still a mindset like in play. And, I'm going to jump into our, like this post from Allie, that I think explains it well in terms of, or frames it well, I should say, the struggle that we're seeing right now and why it's hard when you see, tried and true mechanisms take so long to move on because the companies who led the way, HubSpot in this case, related to SEO, right? They crushed it. Like they dominate, like invented, I don't know if you can go that far. Um, but this inbound mechanism, they clearly like did it better than anybody else so that you search anything related to marketing and they were showing up because they had the blogs, they had the knowledge base, they had the community active, they had HubSpot Academy, right? So Ali made a post yesterday, and I really love like these perspectives because Ali's been in it for a while, crushing it on YouTube. They just went over 25,000, you know, subscribers, which probably if you're used to hearing about like Mr. Beast and stuff like that, doesn't seem like a lot
It's a
for
lot.
somebody focused on one specific SaaS product from a how-to that's a lot
It's a
of
lot.
followers,
It might as
right?
well
Because
be
those
10,000,000.
right, because those followers are there and engaged in a specific purpose and they get value, right? They're not just, oh, I like that person. Let me just click the button, right? So I appreciate her perspective here. And she shares, uh, people who are super fanatic about AI seem to be loving to tear down SEOs who are losing traffic. But the problem here is that we're all in the same boat now of trying to figure it out. We'll come back to that. Even if you're pointing out the tanking traffic from HubSpot's blog, for example, yes, it's shocking. I'm not sure it's that shocking, in my opinion. But it's not like there's something that they pivoted to. Even large companies like them are trying to navigate our current fast changing marketplace. You can't just sit back and say everything is going to agents. Yes, some of that is true, but it doesn't help you in the here right now necessarily. AI folks and marketing bros spew a lot of negativity about old school tactics, but they're also looking to get attention and a rise out of folks. So cool it. Go back to research mode, study your audience, study your own habits, study traffic now and how info is being shared, ask questions, make hypothesis, formulate some bridge strategies. Then make small 30-day experiments and rope those into your plans as you pivot. Still feeling lost? Having some good food for thought from others in the industry is helpful too. Uh, this is a brilliant way to shout people out, by the way.
Yes.
She mentions Peter Caputa, Will Reynolds, Ross Simons, Mark Killens, Alex Lieberman, and Eric Jacobson. The sky is falling. I love this statement. Let's like change is real. It's happening. Let's not discount that. But only if you're not moving. right? Stay vigilant, stay informed, and testing, questioning constantly. When I sent that to you, like, what's your first thoughts?
My first thought, let me just shout out Allie first because yeah, there's some good nuggets in there. Good copy is something that's overheard. By the way, I saw that yesterday. Shout out to whoever said that. Um, but there is a I don't understand the the use of they. Even if you're pointing out the tanking traffic from HubSpot's blog example, yes, it's shocking. It's not like there's something that they pivoted to. Who is they? Something that HubSpot pivoted to, or something that users pivoted to? Because if it's users, then a billion percent there's something they pivoted to, and it's called ChatGPT. So we had this discussion the other day. Maybe I'm just not as well informed, but it would seem like instead of having to rank, or instead of like worrying about traffic, there would need a response from an LLM or something like that. Wouldn't that contribute almost directly to the falling SEO traffic and to all of this?
Yep. I think that's some clarification that could be had.
Yeah.
I made a comment, so uh, that kind of relates to that, but I'll let you. I'd like to hear more of your feedback.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't think HubSpot like made a massive pivot in that short of a time frame of like what their priorities are, what they're optimizing. I don't necessarily think in just based on the time domain that it would have been possible. But if they is talking about the user or the individual looking for stuff or searching or needing, then I mean, tell me what's a better experience? Getting blasted with ad like it's really hard. It's much easier to prompt and search with GPT for me. That's all. I know there's statistics about that where it's becoming the preferred tool for SEO, and people are moving away from all of that. So of course it's going to impact like larger companies who've spent however long, building up that domain authority and building up all of that. Um, now, what repercussions does it have? I mean, I'm not I'm not sure yet, but I think people will continue leaning into AI, especially as it improves.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and that's where it's like there's a hidden the reason we're talking about it right now. Like, there's a hidden aspect I think that people are missing if this is the conversation, and it comes back to like they said at inbound, right? It's getting harder to get people to your site, like, period,
Yep.
right? Why? Because they're spending time on LinkedIn and they want to keep spending time there. They're spending time in Slack. They're spending times in the community. And which means channels like SEO are just inherently impacted. I'm not going to say go as far as say like worse, um, because they're also trying to figure out how to serve up like community based examples like Reddit threads and LinkedIn posts and things like that. But that's still like using an old tool to try and like solve for a new strategy. And the one thing that and so of course I'm biased and like this community approach is always on my mind. So I'm always like everything's through that lens. Also, I've been watching this happen at HubSpot for a while. I do believe, and some people have confirmed, and in why HubSpot is so impressive in a lot of ways is their ability to turn on a dime, right? Like if we go back to 2022 inbound, Dharmesh was all about connect.com,
Yep.
right? That was the plan. Like community led growth, basically. Like we're going all in. That was his whole thing. ChatGPT blew up a month later. They immediately switched gears and like started like changed resource plans to develop AI into the product, right? To the point where I've heard from several people where they were developing content that just got shut off, like for the academy, for multiple different places. It's like, nope, we got to put all our focus on AI, right? At the same time, you have this product explosion where they're going from marketing platform to full platform. They've got a ton of product teams to support that. With that comes mid market and enterprise sales focus. All of this stuff is almost antithesis to the blogging mechanism that they built for SEO, right? If you're in the partner ecosystem, you've felt the lack of enablement resources related to the new stuff, right? They've been doing a lot of structuring with that team, and my hat's off to them about the stuff that they're actually able to accomplish. You'd be surprised at the number of people that are supporting the partner ecosystem and the academy, and they just do a wonderful job with what they have. But you add those things together, then you hear the stories of, yeah, when I do a search, I get to a blog or I get to a community post or I get to a knowledge base article or even the academy, and it doesn't have exactly what I need to solve the problem. It doesn't answer my question exactly. That means SEO is going to go down. Like
Yeah.
when that keeps happening and you don't fill in the gap with more content to serve SEO that actually is going to solve the question, you're going to go down. I think the only reason it hasn't happened yet is because they're a big company that just dominated for so long, and it's kind of like a lag. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that whether connect.com and the 2 months after, what a what a coincidence after going. I don't think I know operationally to your to your points that's changed, and it does require like hat off, hat tip for being able to pivot. But they like it's another example of them, I think, getting it right and almost being prophetic or visionary, especially their leadership team. And like, even though we just said this, even though this was like there was no way for us to know the impact and like status of GPT and LLMs across the board, especially OpenAI and ChatGPT. I don't think that changes the theme at all. I think that actually makes your overarching point for you even better. Like the that was a part of a crisis of connectivity or crisis of disconnection. And now, like it makes a lot of sense that people are relying on being connected more than ever to people and to trust and authority. That's where ads and that falls short and almost fails to kind of serve the purpose of adding value to people, especially I say this all the time, but like in this domain, these are B2B marketer, like they know kind of they know the background and inner workings of like of ads and being served things and all of that. So yeah, people are going to move, I would say, even more increasingly into, I don't think smaller communities is the right thing, but like spheres of trust, spheres of influence, people, brands, thought leaders that they continue to follow, like at their own pace, by the way, at their own, however urgent it is or however much they want, um, and and that builds this grid of connectivity. So you almost can usurp the need to continue having a painful experience of I need this thing or help or value. Let me look for it. I can't find it, or it's not specific enough. Let me just ask people or go on social media or sites or communities, threads, or whatever. And if you do that enough times, and you know, the bigger value that you get is not from Google search or that, you're going to pivot. Like you're going to make a behavioral change to start experiencing less pain is what it comes down to.
Yes. No, that's well said. And, you know, understanding the needs of right now, like, and, this is where it says I appreciate the amount of strategic thought that Chris Walker has added into the space. Because early, like he talked about, just skip Google, like figure out how to skip Google. Like if you can nail them in social or in the conversation, they don't even need to go there, right? Or by the time they do go, they're not searching for the problem, they're searching for your website directly,
Yep.
right? Because you've already built the trust needed. And that's where it turns into a very much a like they use Google not to explore or educate at all. It's if they're already in the 5% ready to buy, right? And if you haven't reached them before that, like good luck. Like SEO, you know, and what she says here, like go back to research more. She's absolutely right. Study your audience, habits, traffic. Where are we studying that traffic? Like if you only have a website and you only have SEO, then you're missing out on all this traffic that exists in social, right? Ask questions, make hypotheses, formulate some bridge strategies. Like this and then this 30-day experiments for me is just very internally focused.
Yeah.
The timeline and that, right? You make your plans. For me, it's just so important to create dynamic space for to let things happen the way that because if you admit that it's not under your control and humans are going to human when they decide to at their pace, like you mentioned,
Yep.
like if you're not there when that happens, you're just out of the game, right? And so I mentioned that those 6 things happen so easily when you just join the community. The real-time feedback loop. Like, you cannot be more invested in voice of customer when you are of the customer group, right? And you can hear the way they say things every day. Um, and I think that HubSpot actually has been trying to pivot to this. Like we've seen them try new community angles, connect.com, they're putting a lot of effort there now. They've been playing around with hugs, right? But for me, as I understand it, it's still like in this old world where we got to own everything and measure everything. And if that's the mentality going in, you naturally don't create the space where it's just let organic magic happen,
Yeah.
right? Which is what happens on here every day. And I'm about to give an example of what that could look like.
I had a comment. You mentioned Chris Walker saying skip Google. Like, I don't think that's it's hard for me to disagree with that, especially within the context of when he was saying it, and a lot of it's provocative. But it's all go back to like thinking about how you first use Google. How I still use Google a lot. It's not. It almost makes more sense, and maybe you can help me be more eloquent about this. But it's for things I know nothing about, or solutions, or hey, what's this phone number? Or it's an education tool. To me, is what it's the best use cases for it. And now some of that's being blocked by stuff that has like blatant transactional value or interest up front, like ads and rankings. And so there's this distrust, but it's also it it would almost depend on what people are. To me, it's a shift in like from search education optimization to like you, what's the most true or current, like scientifically, to like what's the most valuable, like monetarily. And people are just tired of that. It's easier to get answers on things and dive into them elsewhere, especially when trust comes into it. So it's this dive back, or regression from what SEO has become to people just wanting answer. I think about like kids. Like I would use it to be like, what are the three primary colors, right? If you get something that's like boost your primary color deal by 30%. It's like I didn't even ask that. I need to educate here. I'm not looking to purchase. And a lot of what's presented is like offerings or options, or even on a deeper level, why that's there. And it's to get you routed to this other offering, or whatever that people have. So I mean, is there any validity to that? Am I thinking about that correctly? Because GPT, I think you would agree, has taken the place of like search engines as an educator, not an offering tool, not something like capitalistic, but as like, here's this thing you didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. That's the path. Um, I mean, I think there's some validity to what you said about like the consumer knowing what's up when they see, the different links and like I have always been surprised though about how many people do click on Google Ads. And I almost tell it like whenever I'm telling, like trying to walk somebody through, it's like, no, go down there, click that one. Um, and uh, but yeah, that's the shift, right? And like as it shifts to we're used to using Google, then buying behavior changes and we go get educated somewhere else. Now it makes sense to use like to make sure Google is optimized for the transaction to buy something. But even there, like if you get better at e-commerce and there's Amazons of the world, like Google's not the best place to like buy stuff, right? If you're in that mode, that's where even Google like came up with a lot of shopping, stuff like that. Um,
It's not though. It's not the best place. It's the best place to get you to a place where you buy. It's like it's the ultimate intermediary,
right.
right? Like you can't. You could probably tell me this is inaccurate, but like you can't buy anything from Google. It's not. It's like you figure out where to go and get the thing that you need from Google. But but now it's almost like that's right there on the front page. Google is now become a seller, like an unwanted selling tactic. And yeah, I mean, I can't tell you. I feel like I'm pretty good with traumatic or like emergency things, but really small things bother me. Like I think people call that neurotic. After about the third attempt to like get an answer about something on Google, I just can't tell you how irritating it is, and how almost with all of the advancing tech, this is just a guy talking. With all of the advancements, Google has gotten dumber. Like, how does it not know that like this thing that I'm asking about? Whenever I can go to other places and search, YouTube, for example, cat video western where the guy does that funny dance at the end, and it's the first thing that it can almost read my mind. Google has become less perceptive. Maybe people aren't feeling that as much as I am, but it consistently doesn't render the thing I'm looking for, no matter the prompt level or detail. It just can you help me put some better terminology to that?
Well, it's definitely a large assumption that I'm making in terms of like I've never worked for Google. I don't even have any close acquaintances that have ever worked for Google. Um, but it's not dissimilar from what I talked about in terms of understanding HubSpot's like focus,
Yeah,
right? Like when you talk to enough people and you realize like, oh, there's nobody on this team anymore, and there's a bunch of people over. So clearly the blogging infrastructure is going to be impacted. They just don't have the resources to support it. Obviously, they're usually making a strategic, decision by doing that. Google, the whole business model, like most of their revenue is Google Ads,
yeah,
which is directly impacted by this shift, right? And when it's such a boon for you, like it takes a long time, or it's not easy, I'll say. I don't know how long it takes. In some cases, I think some business models are impossible, to come back from. And some companies like Zoom Info, in my opinion, are just hanging on like as long as they can. Uh, because this whole like just crush it in the sales and then lock people into contracts, like it's not it anymore. And people are figuring that out. Right. And that's where it's like, how, if
that's what
that's
we
the
should have
business
named this.
model,
Why do we always do this, man? Because I know I gotta hop soon, but look, all of the stuff we just said, I think we can go more into next time. But why did we not call this episode like "Is Google the next blockbuster"? Speaking of profoundly, that is a profound uh, discussion track, because like the need for that just isn't there anymore, not in the same way. And so you see these other thing. I mean, is Google the next blockbuster? Now you have ChatGPT being the next Netflix. Like what killed it? Video killed the radio star. There've been songs and discussions about that for years. But that to me is kind of how you're positioning it. It's like
Yeah,
Their
and that's
whole
why I
business
say
model isn't going to stand up to the wave of new technology. And I would, again, not affiliated either, not the smartest dude in the world. That's not going to happen tomorrow. It might never happen because I mean, they've existed this long and are Google for a reason. They're going to pivot for sure. They already are. But
yeah,
that, to your point, most of their revenue comes from that. It's like that's not something people are responding to the same way. It's not something that's as trusted or it's just not yielding the same results.
right.
Blockbuster was, it was an
You
OG,
have to figure out
unfortunately.
an entirely new monetization and revenue strategy.
Yeah.
And just to remind people and connect the dots, Blockbuster, uh, from what I've understood and learned, they thought the margins were so great related to the candy and all the stuff that you bought in stores. That was one of the reasons they chose not to buy Netflix or invest Netflix, or that's why it took them so long to change because they could not think outside of this paradigm where people are in store,
Yeah.
right? And that's where Google has to figure out how do they make money outside of search? And that's how I ended this comment. Like there was a time before SEO. I think there will be a time after because come back to this point of like there's still journeyman salespeople that have been crushing it and they've never picked up a SaaS tool in their life
Yeah.
because they care about relationships
Yep.
and they figure that out and searches like it doesn't serve that part, right? It doesn't serve the synchronous engagement thing that we're seeing on social and in other places. And the thing that I think is being missed is like we keep talking AI creates the space for you to go do that stuff so that you're not stuck in uh, you know, web infrastructure, front end SEO, back end SEO, uh, all of the stuff that we've been worrying about, like any of it that's left, figure out how to get AI to do that for you because it's all digital. And that's where, you know, you lean in. And now what do you do with the space that you have? You go engage, you go be humans, right?
Yes.
And it just will work itself out if you're good humans and if you actually have value to bring to the market, right? Because
Yeah.
there's
I
a
mean,
lot of charlatans
that's the
out
only
there.
thing I'm hoping on and relying on to happen. That would help me out a ton.
Yes. So I know you got to jump. Um, we'll be talking about this stuff at length. I'm sure this is a paradigm shift, like no joke. And I I'm hopeful that we can help you figure this out. That's why we're changing the name of the show. There's GTM things in my email inbox every day. It's like 8 metrics, like we got to figure out how to go be in the community.
I got to go on for you next time. I mean, look, shout out again. I know we're at time. Um, Crazy that you were able to. I don't care what George B says about you. You're one of the OGs. You've been doing the dirty work in the trenches for full year at least with 350 plus. So um, nobody more deserving. I think your hearts and mind and kind of visions in the right spot. So it's fun to do this, man. Um,
I appreciate that
Congrats
very
once again.
much. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And we're just getting started. So, um, that's Let's Build GTM for today. It's been awesome, Rob. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, man.
Adios. You too.
Bye. Awesome.